If Blender is throwing a shadow buffer error, don't worry. This is usually a memory and shadow allocation problem, and in this video I'm going to show you exactly how to fix it step by step. We'll look at why it happens, how to increase the shadow pool, how to reduce shadow memory usage, and how to optimize your light so Blender can render clean shadows without crashing or warning you about buffer limits. If this tutorial helps you, please hit like and subscribe for more Blender fixes and quick workflow tips. Now let's jump in. First, let's understand the main reason this error appears. Blender uses a shared shadow pool for lights, and that pool has a limit based on the memory available to your GPU. If too many lights are trying to cast shadows, or if one light is covering too much area, Blender can run out of shadow buffer space. That's when you get the shadow buffer error. So the goal is not just to increase limits blindly, it's to make your shadow setup more efficient. Start by opening Blender and going to Render Properties. You'll find this in the Properties panel on the right side, and it's the tab with the camera icon. Inside Render Properties, look for the Performance section, then find Memory, and from there, you should see the Shadow Pool setting. This is the overall pool Blender uses for shadow allocation. If your GPU has enough VRAM, you can increase this value to give Blender more space for shadows. But be careful here. Pushing it too high can cause performance problems or even make things worse if your graphics card doesn't have enough memory. A good rule of thumb is to increase the shadow pool only a little at a time, then test your scene. If the error disappears and your render remains stable, you've likely found a safe balance. If your scene is already heavy, especially with many lights, high-resolution textures, or large environments, it may be better to optimize the lights before increasing memory too much. Next, select the light that is causing the issue. Go to the light object, then open the Light Data Properties tab, which is the green light bulb icon. In this panel, find the Shadow section. One of the most important settings here is the resolution limit. This controls how much shadow detail that light is allowed to use. If the value is too low, the light may hog too much of the available buffer. Increasing the resolution limit can actually reduce memory pressure in some cases because Blender becomes more efficient about how it allocates shadow resources. This is especially important when one light is covering a very large area. For example, if your key light has a huge clip range or is trying to light an entire scene from far away, Blender may need to allocate a lot of virtual shadow tiles. That stretched coverage can cause the buffer to fill up quickly. To fix that, try reducing the area the light has to cover, or adjust the clip range so it only affects the space that actually matters in the shot. Now let's talk about unnecessary shadows. Not every light in your scene needs to cast shadows. Fill lights, accent lights, or small practical lights often look better without shadows anyway. In the Light Data tab, simply turn off shadow for any light that does not need it. This is one of the fastest ways to free up shadow memory, reduce render overhead, and make the whole scene more stable. A lot of people keep shadows enabled on every light by default, but that is one of the quickest ways to overload the shadow pool. Another smart fix is to prioritize your lights. Keep your key light clean and controlled, and give it the shadow quality it needs. For secondary lights, use a higher resolution limit or disable shadows entirely if the scene allows it. This way, the most important light keeps good quality, while the less important lights stop consuming valuable buffer space. In other words, don't waste shadow memory on lights the audience will barely notice. If you're using a sunlight or cascaded shadow maps, there's another setting you should check. Go back into Render Properties, find the Shadow section, and look for max distance for cascaded shadow maps. Reducing this setting helps Blender focus shadow detail only where the camera actually needs it. The farther the shadow system has to reach, the more memory it may use, so tightening that distance can make a big difference in large scenes. If you want softer results without cranking the resolution too high, try using jittered shadows, also known as soft shadows depending on your setup. Jitter helps hide low-resolution artifacts and makes the shadow edges feel smoother without demanding as much memory. This is a really useful trick when you want visually pleasing shadows but don't want to force Blender into a high memory setup. And if your version of Blender supports it, make sure Raytracing is enabled in Render Properties for the most accurate shadow falloff. Ray-traced shadows can often give you better quality with less need for extra contact shadow tricks, especially when your scene lighting is well organized. That said, it still helps to keep your lights optimized because even the best rendering mode can run into problems if the scene is overloaded. So let's quickly recap the best fix strategy. First, increase the shadow pool only if your GPU VRAM can handle it. Second, optimize each light's shadow settings, especially the resolution limit. Third, disable shadows on fill lights that don't need them. Fourth, reduce the max distance for cascaded shadows when using a sunlight. Fifth, use jittered or soft shadows to hide low-resolution artifacts. And finally, keep ray tracing enabled if available for cleaner and more accurate results. If you apply those steps, you should be able to eliminate the Blender shadow buffer error and keep your scene running much more efficiently. The key is to balance quality and memory instead of forcing every light to use maximum shadow detail. That's how you get stable renders and better performance in one go. If this video helped you solve the problem, please give it a like, subscribe for more Blender tutorials, and comment below if you want more troubleshooting guides like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.